let's go ahead and get started. We have a lot to cover.
Yep. All right. So for the ones that don't have the white paper yet, you will see there in the chat the link to download that. So don't worry, you're going to have it here in the presentation. You see in the top corner the QR code. Perfect. So let's get started. One thing, so we're going to talk about navigating Amazon's increasing fees back in 2024. You probably seen all of the news happening and all of the changes. One thing that caught my attention when I saw the statistics was this graphic about the Amazon's profit. So by 2022, when Amazon launched the report, the end-of report of the profits and putting that out, they were losing money in 2022. And their job in 2023 was to stop losing money and actually make money. And if you can see how 2.7 billions, they were down 2.7 billions, and just in Q1 in 2023, they recovered that. One of the things was because they increased the fees, and a huge impact was the 2023 fees. And now in 2024, it's even worse. So one of the things that also is extremely interesting is how much Amazon is taking out of your revenue when you sell in FBA. And not only because you pay the program, you pay the fulfillment fees, but also because you're investing in ads. So if you've been here long enough and you've been selling on Amazon, let's say since 2014, in 2014, if you sell the $100, back then you were only paying $19 to Amazon, both for fulfillment and ads. Right now in 2023, we pay, or that's the two first quarters of 2023, we pay $45 out of $100 that we sell on Amazon with the fees, which is insane. And the other part, and what we're going to be focusing on today, is the fulfillment side of it. All of the fees that are coming up and how much money Amazon is taking from that. So in this chart, you will see that in 2015, Amazon used to subsidize our fulfillment costs, right? 70% of it was covered from the seller side and 30% was covered by them. So, that was the big attraction or the big move that they had to do for sellers to come into the platform and start, offering their services. That's over because in 2023, just in the first 2 quarters, with the change that they did last year on the fees, we are already ourselves covering 100% of the fulfillment costs. And that means fees of internal distribution to the last mile to the client, storage, and all of the things that are internally in the structure when you use FBA. So the main question here is, what is driving this? And one thing is, this chart is so funny. The next one, when you see in 2019, we only had 3 fees. FBA fulfillment, you cannot get away with that. Like if you want to use FBA, that's what you need to do. Storage fees, you cannot also go away without paying that. And long-term storage. Those are the 3 things that we had in 2019. In 2024, as you can see, there is a whole list of it. And 3 of them, the ones that you see like in pinkish, the inbound placement, the peak and non-peak fee, and the FBA fulfillment, those are the ones that are granted. Those are the ones that if you use FBA, you will pay those fees. The other ones that are in green, those are the reflection on how well you maximize or how well you do inventory management and forecasting. So a lot of the webinar will be about covering those fees, the ones that you can control, right? And how you will control it with the proper strategies. So you can see, and this is something that Chelsea will touch on a lot, is in the past, the good sellers that do good forecasting used to subsidize the ones that were doing a bad job because Amazon was averaging all of the fees and charging people more than what they're supposed to be charged. Right now, in 2024, that model, we will see that the people that do well with the inventory management and forecasting will actually potentially decrease their fees if versus the people that keep doing the same thing. So completely different paradigm. 2024 will be definitely the year where you will change all of your processes to do inventory management and forecasting.
So yeah, let's go over some of the fees. So I know that you guys are probably familiar with these, but what we're doing is we're comparing what happened in 2023 next to what is coming down the pike in 2024. And so as you can see from this column, the change column, you can see that there are several fees that increase. We've got the aged inventory fee that increased significantly. And this is looking at a specific scenarios, right? Specific tiers, right? Size tiers. For FBA fulfillment fees, you can see it actually changed. It decreased. So that's a big shift. And one of the reasons I feel that the shift was made is that you've got this FTC, these claims that Amazon has been charging immense amounts of fees to Amazon sellers. And so I believe it's a good faith gesture toward the FTC to have them reduce some fees and then target their specific cost centers, which are the storage fees and the removal fees, all of the fees having to do with the moving of inventory and the inventory not turning over. And so they're specifically targeting, as Vanessa said, those sellers who are not that great at inventory management. All of these other fees related to storage and related to excess inventory and to too little inventory have increased. We've got a new inventory, the low inventory level fee, which I saw from the poll results that this is the fee that is most concerning to people. And so we're going to go into more detail about that and about the details of what that fee is. So let's talk about the timeline. Here's the timeline, and you'll see some of these fees have already taken effect. And there are several that are going to be activated later on this year. So you've got the holiday peak and the fulfillment fees that increased for last quarter. You've got some apparel referral fees were reduced. So you've got that theme of some of these fees being reduced, lower referral fees for some categories. The aged inventory surcharge change has already taken place. So it's important to note that you have to get inventory moved through the system before it hits a certain bracket. You've got the changes in fulfillment fees, March 1st, inbound placement fee. That's one that's concerning to people as well. And then April 1st is when the low inventory level fee kicks in. And that is something that you can plan for in advance. So if you know it's coming out, you should definitely create a strategy. And we actually have that to share with you. And then go ahead.
So before we even get into FBA, we need to talk about how are we going to get there. And this year, they implement a fee called inbound placement. So with the inbound placement, that is not a new thing, but before it was a setting under your FBA fulfillment where you could disable or enable it depending on what you want. So it basically reflects right now, Amazon is saying, we're going to charge you a fee for the cost that we have, but of distributing the inventory across the fulfillment network. For example, you used to send inventory to North Carolina and Charleston, and they will, break down that inventory and they will send it across the network to fulfill demand, right? Closer to the customer. Right now, they're saying okay, you're going to pay for that. The seller will pay for that. And there are 3 influencing factors. Depending on your product type and the quantities that you have under your shipment plan, and here in product types, I refer to the tier in the fulfillment, let's say the standard size, large charge, flammable apparel, or so on. Then you have existing inventory across the network. So Amazon will reroute you in case you have too much inventory in a specific area, and also the end location for the demand. So how far they need to spread out that inventory, they will charge you for that. And this is a variable fee. So if you see in the next one, you will see that we have a premium service that used to be optional, that used to be like, if you want to send everything to one fulfillment center, you will pay for that premium service. And in the past, it was like between 30 cents and 40 cents a unit. Right now, the premium service depends on the tier of the size of your product. And as you see, it's variable. It's a range from, let's say in the small standard for 16 ounces or less, it's 21 cents to 30 cents. And the reason why, it's because there are higher fees when you send this to the West. So if you send it in the US to the West, they will charge you more for it. And they will take that fee to spread it and, pay for the distribution in the internal network. You need to account for this if you're selling pallets. So if you're sending inventory in big pallets, and obviously you want that to go to the same location, you probably will incur in the premium service, because if not, Amazon will break down your shipment. Let's say you're trying to sell or send 1,000 units. It used to be done in a pallet, and now either you pay the premium service per unit, or you're gonna pay the discount service, which is the other part. But this one has a huge caveat that it's very interesting. And we cannot pull the numbers yet because we don't know how they're going to roll out. But it says that you can receive up to 100% discount of the premium service based on you distributing your inventory across the network. Instead of sending one pallet of 1,000 units to one warehouse, you will send 10 different shipments to 10 different warehouses. And you have a chance to get 100% discount on the fee. But not necessarily. If they send inventory to a specific location and then Amazon needs to redistribute that in the network, you will get charged a fee, a percentage of the premium service. So the discount will vary on the amount of shipments and the locations. And the interesting part is that you will only see this 45 days after your shipment is received in the inbound location, because they will account for the inbound location and for the quantities that they receive at that inbound location. So when you create a shipment plan, when this goes in place, I think it's February 1st, when this goes in, you will see an estimation of what you will pay for this inbound placement fee. But it's only after the 45 days after the shipment is received that you will see that charge in your payment statement. So this is one of the things that you need to be very, very careful. And you can offset this fee if you use AWD. So the other one is after you get into a network. So when you get into a network, you know that one of the fees that we cannot get away by paying is the fulfillment fee. And right now, we already know how the fulfillment works and everything is great. But a huge thing that changed this year was that they broke down the tiers again. They did it in 2023. They did it again this year. So instead of having 9 tiers for sizes, now we have more than 16. Because now there's a small standard size goes in an interval of 2 ounces. Large is 4 ounces. There's no change for apparel products, but they're replacing all of the things that are oversized with a new weight and dimensions revision. So pay attention to this. Chelsea will cover that in a bit. When you go into a lower tier, there is an opportunity for you to, in 2024, being paying less for fulfillment fees because you're falling now in a tier lower since the interval changes or change. And there's also an opportunity for you to do that on purpose this year if you want to pay less. So these are the changes right there. And Chelsea will cover the case study for you to see how will that impact your bottom line.
Absolutely. So yes, so if we look at a case study, we take this example of a fleece blanket, and the fleece blanket is currently being priced at just below $24. Cubic foot is 0.24 pounds, And the size tier is large standard, and it actually benefited from the change in size. If you look at it, it's a max of 1.25 pounds, and it used to be charged at between 1 and 1.5. So this tier did change down for this product. The case study looks at inventory aged 9 months and also the days of supply at 20 days. So we start to be impacted by things like the low inventory level fee and the aged inventory fees. So we'll get into the specifics of what Vanessa and I call fee stacking. So here is the product, and we'll watch how each of these fees start to deduct from our profitability. So we've got that $24, and then we look into the landed cost and the referral fee, and we say that it was $16.64 now that we've factored those things in. Then you obviously have to pay for fulfillment. Fulfillment, if you look at the tiers here, you'll see that we're going to be paying $5.40 for each product that was fulfilled. Now in 2024, if the size tier was the same, you would be paying $5.37, which is still 3 cents lower than what you would be paying in 2023. So this is where we start to see some savings. And the size tier change gets us even more savings here. So now we're saving 41 cents from last year to this year in fulfillment fees. Then we look at the monthly storage, and this also has decreased. So when we look at this, we look at the cubic feet. We went from 87 cents per cubic foot to 78 cents. So we're saving 9 cents per cubic foot for this particular product. And we look at the months of storage. So when you start getting into much higher months of storage, in our example, we have 9 months of storage, and this isn't even factoring the peak storage rates. So we're just looking at those first 9 months of the year. You have to multiply your storage rate by the number of months that you have it stored. So we're looking at this product went from 19 cents per month. It's now at $1.71. So we stack that on top, and it's still an 18-cent decrease from last year. So far, so good. We've got decreases in this product when we look at these two tiers or two fees. Then we have aged inventory fees, and those definitely increased in the 9 months to 12 months range. You can see that these first tiers, it's the 6 months, 7 and 8, are the same for last year as they are for this year. But where we get into a huge change is when we look at from 9 months on. So that's a huge leap and a huge change that we're experiencing there that you'll be charged, and that's stacked on top of your monthly storage. So you've got your monthly storage, and then you've got that additional storage surcharge. They call it a surcharge. And so as you see with our example, we've got it in there for 9 months. So if you add all the fees together, it's $2.03 for this product to have been sitting there for 9 months, in addition to the monthly storage. So that's a significant increase there. Let's talk about low inventory level fees. I know that this was the most confusing fee, and there's a lot of different factors. So I want to go over the factors that apply to this, and then we'll get into some of the actions to take and how this fee actually is calculated. So first and foremost, it's a fulfillment fee. There were some people who were thinking that it was a storage fee. It's a fulfillment fee. So you're not being charged for your inventory to be stored. You're being charged for it to be fulfilled. So you're only charged when it's shipped out to the customer. And the reasoning behind this is that Amazon, they want a good distribution of your product throughout the country. They have their 2-day Prime minimum goal that they want to hit. And so if you've got product that is not available in one of those closer fulfillment centers, they have to send it further, and it's going to require them to send it express. So they're losing, they're spending more money to fulfill your products if you don't have a good spread. This is why the low inventory level fee exists, is because Amazon is making up for the additional costs for that fulfillment for them. So that's first and foremost a fulfillment fee. If you don't ship anything out, even if you're in that bracket, you're not going to be charged anything. Then, and so we explained the stock distribution, that being the reason that Amazon is charging these fees. And because it's a fulfillment fee and they're targeting specifically those who don't keep enough inventory in stock, that is allowing them to lower the standard fulfillment fee. The items that are factored into your inventory levels is sellable stock. So if you have available stock and you have sellable reserved inventory, that's the only thing that they use to calculate. They don't apply customer orders. So customer orders are already spoken for. Then they also don't charge for removal or disposal orders or liquidation, which is great because those items sometimes take a long time to move through the system. So as soon as you've placed those orders, they won't count anymore. Then you have inbound. Inbound does not count. If your item's inbound until it's checked in, it won't be factored into the calculation. Another thing to understand is that this is on a parent ASIN level. So Amazon will look at all of the child ASINs, combine them all together, and do the calculation from that point. So if you've got products that are slow selling, but they're attached to another product that is relatively good seller for you, then you don't have to worry about those slow sellers. In the same point, once your parent ASIN falls into that tier, every single product is going to be charged. So every child ASIN will be charged that fee. One way to get around this is, you can't get around this forever, but if you launch a new parent product that is what Amazon calls new to FBA, what is going to happen is that for the first 180 days, you won't have to face the low inventory level fee. So that's the first 180 days, the fees are waived for you, only for new FBA parent products. The one caveat is that you have to be enrolled in something called FBA New Selection. So you have to be enrolled. Amazon is not going to do it automatically. The fees are calculated weekly on Sundays. So keep that in mind. If you've got a restock product, Amazon's going to reassess on Sundays. So if you can get your inventory in before that deadline, then you won't be subject to those fees. People ask about seasonality. Does seasonality get somehow accommodated? There is no change in Amazon's calculation for seasonality. So that can be a little bit of a sticky situation for some people. We'll go through the calculations. Amazon tries to balance this out, but I do suspect we'll see some interesting things happen with the seasonal products that you might have in your catalog. Again, because it's a fulfillment fee, you are not subject to this fee when you stock out. You're only subject to it when you ship inventory out. And then lastly, and you might start seeing this as a theme, Amazon warehousing and distribution. If you're auto replenishing, if your inventory is being stored at Amazon warehousing and distribution and you've set to auto replenish, then you can have your inventory waived. You can have your fee waived. So that is important to understand. Amazon is pushing a lot towards Amazon warehousing and distribution. There's a lot of other perks to it, but it's one of those, double-edged swords because you are working with Amazon. So keep that in mind. And, it is something that's available, but do your due diligence to make sure that it's something that is right for your business. And then don't put your eggs in one basket. I always say, if you're going for AWD, don't leave all your inventory with Amazon. My opinion, it's just a dangerous place to be. Low inventory level fees. So these are the tiers. There's actually a 2-tiered system. You've got small standard, large standard, and then large standard over 3 pounds. It's only for standard products. And so that's the first tier. So you got to find where your product fits within that. And then it's a fee that is a per unit fee. So you've got different tiers for different days of supply. So if you have, as you have less and less inventory, it gets more and more expensive because you don't have that distribution across the country. So some things that you can do if you find that you are in this category and you're incurring these fees, or if you're about to, one is to increase the price. And that will do a couple of things. Increasing the price will offset that fee, or it'll try to offset that fee to some extent. It will also slow down your sales, so you can try to stay within this higher zone and maybe even get into above that, what I call a threshold. It'll lower your average historical days of supply average. So in general, slowing down those sales and increasing that price can help you as a strategy. Turn off marketing. If you are at least lower it and try not to have that affect your ranking. But slowing down marketing, if you've got coupon codes and you're being charged this extra fee, you probably don't want to be using those coupon codes. You probably want to reduce some of your ad spend because you're paying this extra fee, and then you're also spending money on advertising. So that in itself starts to eat away at your profit margin. And then, of course, ship in more stock as quickly as possible. Once your stock arrives, remember, it's once your stock arrives and checks in and becomes available or in that sellable reserve category that you then can have it counting towards your days of supply. Okay, so here's the factors. There are a few factors, and Amazon speaks a little bit differently about this. They talk in terms of days of supply, which is important, but some sellers think in terms of units, not necessarily days of supply. So really, it depends on how you're looking at and how you're factoring things. But we want to know what our threshold is, right? How many units do we have to keep in order to keep our days of supply? Because what we might be using in our inventory systems, in our planning, might not be what Amazon's data is. Because if Amazon they look at just the cold hard data. They don't look at the various factors that you might have in terms of marketing and those types of things. So the first factor that Amazon looks at is your 30-day average. How many units did you sell within that 30 days? And then they divide it by 30 to figure out what your average units per day is. So in this example, we're looking at 10 units per day on average for 30 days. So to look at the 30-day average, and then they also look at the 90-day average. I call it short-term historical and long-term historical. In this example, the 90-day average means that we've got 11 units a day. So we've got those two factors, 10 units a day or 11 units a day as our baseline. And then we figure out, and then Amazon looks at days of supply. They want to make sure that you have over 28 days of supply. So we can look at our 30-day average and see 10 units a day times 28 days is 280 days, or 80 units is my threshold for 30 days. Then if I'm looking at 90 days, my threshold is 308 units. So Amazon's going to take the lesser of that. They want to make sure that both of those things are true, right? They're giving you the ability to factor that lower amount. So your threshold for this scenario is going to be 280 units or less. Then you're going to start getting billed for the low inventory level fee. So I think it's important to start to create a system to track your days of supply, to track that calculation so that you know what your thresholds are, so that you can make plans accordingly. It's, I think, even more important to plan in advance, to know this information, not when it's going to happen, but let's say 2 weeks before it's going to happen. And that's actually something that we're working on right now, about to launch in SoStock, is the ability to be able to track what items are in danger 2 weeks before, because then you can act and you can slow down your sales. You can, reduce your marketing, all of those sorts of things before you get into the danger zone. So let's go to the fee stacking. So let's look at low inventory level fee. In our scenario, we were at 20 days of supply. So we fall into the category where we're being charged 70 cents per unit for every unit that ships out. Now we only have, out of that $24, we have $7.21 as our profit. It's a 30% profit margin, and we haven't even added the ad spend or your overhead. So that is a tough pill to swallow, right? The good news is,
Chelsea.
Yeah.
Sorry. Before we get deeper into the case study, there are questions, and I would like to bring them up because I think are valuable. So one of the questions that I think some people were still confused was they asked, or Michelle asked, so do we go off of the 30 or 90-day supplies or the lesser value? That is one that's interesting. We were talking about that when we were preparing the content. Amazon will only charge the low inventory fee if both of those metrics, both your 30-day supply and your 90-day supply, are below 28 days. Okay, so for example, and this is for seasonality, if you have a product that is seasonal for just 90 days, right? Let's say 90 days, 3 months out of a year, let's say Q4, in the following quarter, you will have that the days of supplies for the 90 days was high, but the days of supplies for the 30 days is low. When one of those are high, meaning one of those meet the 28 days, you are not getting charged. You only get charged when you continuously, both 90 days and 30 days are below the 28-day supply. So you need to understand that, because you can play, like for seasonality, that this could impact sellers that sell seasonal products, but pretty briefly, because you change this on a weekly base. And if you tweak the 30-day supply and you put it up to the 28 days, then Amazon won't charge you. So both metrics need to be below the 28 days for you to get charged.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are
there other questions?
Yes. The other thing was they were saying that the commingling. So these ones were kind of funny because I don't know if guys understand still Amazon logic. Guys, we are playing a game and the rules are always changing. 2024 rules are completely different. So take the logic and put it away, because this doesn't apply here. So they were asking for, if I commingle my inventory, then I won't get charged low inventory fee.
Right. Like you would think,
that's not happening.
You would think that was the case, and that makes sense, but that's not the case. So the wholesale sellers are going to get hit hardest for this. It makes more sense that Amazon would do that because they're sharing the buy box. And even though you might not have inventory in California to ship to Nevada, someone else might. And Amazon is more likely to give them the buy box. But still, Amazon's going to charge you if you have less, even if other people sharing the buy box have enough to cover. I don't think it's fair. And I'm sure if you're a wholesale seller, you probably don't think it's fair either. But that is the logic, as illogical as it might be.
Yeah. And the other thing that I saw in the questions, the workaround was like, oh, so I delete the parent and I create a new parent and then I don't pay for it. Yeah, that's nice try. Like, you still get rich. Yeah, because the new to FBA is when you have new child ACs to the parent, not all child ACs. So we can, again, remove the logic. Amazon doesn't have that.
All right. So to wrap up the case study, so that scenario wasn't very nice to experience. But when we look at a scenario where the inventory is actually in good shape, exact same scenario, but instead of 9 months of inventory age, we have 3 months, and we keep our levels high enough that we are not getting low inventory fees. What that looks like, a lot better. We're at $11 in profit, and our profit margin is 46% with this scenario. You're not being charged low inventory. You're not being charged aged inventory. And Amazon has reduced the fees in fulfillment and storage versus last year. So what we're seeing with this scenario is that you actually make less profit last year than this year. Your profit margin was 44 cents or 44% for this scenario, as opposed to this year, 46%. So you can see how important getting that inventory is proper inventory control, forecasting successfully. Very, very important this year. It's been important since 2020, more important this year than any other year, specifically in terms of your profit margin.
Perfect. So let's talk about capacity limits. Before I move forward, answering the question, the low inventory fee will apply for the US or North America. Also Europe. We still don't see it in Asia though, right?
No, what we're seeing is that it's only in pan EU. So not in the UK, only in pan EU. And if we go back to the logic on inventory distribution, the UK is a relatively small country, so they don't have the problems with having to express orders and be able to meet the shipping requirements. So you're seeing it in areas where Amazon's spread the inventory out and they need to have that proper distribution, which is why you've got it in the US and why you've got it in pan EU.
Yeah. And the other thing that we're going to cover, one question was like, so now they're charging us to have low inventory and also charging us to have a lot of inventory. So in reality, if you learn how to manage inventory properly, you don't need to pay any of those fees. So the next point is the FBA capacity limits. Right now, if you know, in the past, we used to have the weekly restock that happened during the pandemic. We have the API that got us the quarterly storage volume limits. That was replaced by the capacity limit. And with the capacity limit, they basically determine how much inventory you can send to FBA in a month, right? They announce this every third Monday of the month prior to the one that's going to get open. So you have a week to assess what you're going to do. If you're going to bid for more or remove inventory, we're going to talk about that. And each storage option has its own capacity limits. Somebody was saying in the chat, for dangerous goods, the limits are really low. That's true. And I don't see Amazon releasing that to more inventory. And that's probably will be one of the categories that will get impacted the most for the low inventory fee, for sure. And the FBA capacity limit is influenced by the IPI and the sales performance. So if you see in this slide, how you see the UI in Seller Central, you basically have each specific storage option on top, and then your level or your capacity, volume for that specific month. So in this chart, you will see what you have on hand plus what you have on shipment. And those together shouldn't be above the maximum amount of volume that you have available for that month. So what happens is that if you see there, I have February. So right now I already had February, which is next month. I can plan for that. And the estimations for March and April. That doesn't mean that if you see there, it's 12,000 and then 10,000. That doesn't mean that it will be that number, but they're estimating for us to plan better. Sometimes it's a little bit lower, but I haven't seen a dramatic change, let's say from 12,000 to 2,000. That doesn't happen because they want you to plan accordingly. So what are the repercussions when you overstock? Like, this is one thing that when you have above the capacity limits, we have two things that will happen. So we can see the overage fees or the reservation fee. Research. Okay. So the overage fees, when we have inventory on hand, that means that it's in the FBA warehouse, plus our receiving or the ones that are inbound. If we go above our capacity, they will charge us $10 per cubic foot per month for the exceeding limit. So let's say that they limit my capacity to 1,000 square foot, but I have 1,100, right? So for those 100 cubic foot, I will pay $10 per. So that will give me the overage fees. That's per month.
And it's calculated on a daily basis as well. So as you sell through, you have less than less being charged, but it's calculated daily.
Yeah. And that gets extremely expensive. What's the other option? Paying the reservation fee. Well, I guess that in the next slide, you will see the next option, but the reservation fee is what you could do when this capacity limit hits you on the third Monday of the month, where they give you a limit, but you know that you're going to have more inventory. You can bid for that space. And the bidding is based on your budget. You can bid whatever you want per cubic foot. So you already know that Amazon is charging $10 per cubic foot a month. So obviously you want to bid below $10, because if not, it's better or cheaper to pay the overage fees. And that's the other system and the other algorithm that we need to play around with if we do reservation fees or if we bid for space, is that they will give you credits, performance credits, that's how they're called, per dollar that you sell with that extra space. What does that mean? Let's say that you bid for 100 cubic foot of inventory that you need to send extra. You're going to pay, let's say, $1,000, just as an example. If you sell all of that inventory in that month, Amazon will give you the performance credits for you to cover that reservation fee. Therefore, at the end of the month, you're not paying the reservation fee. But you need to be pretty sure that you can sell that inventory. And sometimes rushing into selling more will mean that you will need to spend more money on advertising or even lowering the price in order to get more sales in. So it's a double sword. It's like here, because I don't see how the capacity limits or the bidding system is a good way to do it. So what you need to pay attention then is managing your IPI and managing your sales performance, which means the sell-through rate. If that's higher constantly, and if you work to have that really high, then you will never see these things in your account, hopefully. And the last option, which is the thing that you will do, and guys, I actually almost didn't want to put this in the presentation because I feel that nobody should ever do removals or disposal with things because of bad forecasting. But we're gonna talk about, we cannot get away with removals if people return our product and they're unfulfillable. We still pay for removals. So this year they increased the fees just a little bit, but after a dramatic increase that happened in 2023. So the fees are the same. Every time you remove the inventory, they will charge you this fee for removal per unit, depending on your size tier. And also, one thing that it was kind of like hidden in the policy, in the changes of 2024, was something around a fee that they will charge you when your inventory or your products are above a return rate, a threshold in the return rate of the category. What does that mean? Let's say that you sell apparel and the threshold of return in apparel as a whole category is 20%. So 20% of the products that get sold under their category get returned. If you have inventory with return rate of 35%, you're gonna get a fee on top of your removal and disposal, because the return that's coming from the customer, that's where you get charged that, plus the removing it from FBA. So this fee is one that I don't really like, meaning using it as a mechanism to get rid of inventory in the warehouse, because it gets extremely expensive. And sometimes it's even faster to do like a flash sale or investing a lot in or lowering the price to get rid of inventory. So yeah, that's a big change there. And now, like, I hope that you guys still with us, because I know that this is mind blowing. And again, please, I know you can be there. There are two types of people that will see these fees. The one that will just complain, feel anxious, and I saw some comments over there that feel anxious, stressed, or overwhelmed. And I understand why. This is not easy. But if you want to play this game long term, just like go through white paper. You can watch this presentation again and see how you can forecast and play this game better. Because as Chelsea mentioned in the presentation, there is a possibility for you to pay less fees this year than what you were paying in 2023. It's just about of doing it right. And there are already tools for that, and we're going to help you at the end of the presentation. You will see what we have for you so you can get better at it. But, consider those things. And the other person is the one that will just make an action plan and start implementing the changes that they need to do in their business.
Yeah. So to Vanessa's point, there are specific things that you can do, specific strategies for fee prevention. Right? We have to start thinking in terms of fee prevention. And a big part of fee prevention is fee forecasting. So if you understand what the fees are, you know what the rules of the fee are, then you can start planning your business around that so that you can avoid these. Because inventory is a slow moving boat. It's not as easy as turning off your ad spend, right? In order to reduce your fees, you have to allow the time to either sell through or to get the inventory into Amazon. So it takes a lot of foresight and prior planning. So understanding these fees is the first step, like we talked about. And again, a push for the white paper, because that breaks everything down. And then being able to proactively plan. So here's some of the things that you can do to avoid each of these fees. You've got the inbound placement fee, and this is a tough one. You've got multi-location that can help you to avoid specific fees. The inbound placement fee, and hopefully a good portion of that other fee, but then you also have AWD. And again, it's actually the star should be on the AWD. It's run the numbers. It can get really expensive to do multi-location. And then with AWD, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking because you're still going to be dealing with Amazon. And so it's not as easy as picking up the phone, calling your 3PL, and handling a situation. You're dealing with the support that Amazon offers, which we know isn't that great. So that's the inbound placement fee. Those are your options there. And then with the monthly storage fee, there are a couple of things you can do. Increase your sell-through, right? Ship more often. If you're shipping more often, you're turning over your inventory more often. Your storage fees are going to be lower. And then consider looking at your product and resizing it. There is a resizing audit that we do that helps to figure out. You want to look at your fee tier and see if your product should be in a lower fee tier. Is it possible to get Amazon to remeasure that? You can do a remeasure request. And then the other thing to look at is it possible to work with your supplier to reduce the size? That is another strategy. If you can get the cubic feet down, then you can reduce your monthly storage. Then you have the aged inventory surcharge. The same things that apply to monthly storage will apply to that. Tracking your age also helps. So if you've got products that are going to be moving into a segment, 6 months or more, where they're going to age, especially at the 9-month mark, when it jumps up to $5.45 per cubic foot, track your age. I download the aged inventory surcharge report. It's under the fulfillment in the section of payments. Download that and take a look at the age of your inventory. It's right there. Increase sell-through. liquidate as a last resort. If that's something where you run the numbers and you see liquidation is going to be less expensive than actually incurring those hefty fees. Storage utilization surcharge. I'm not going to go into this in great detail. This is it's same things apply as to the other storage fees. This is a fee that is applied. It's calculated on the amount of inventory for your whole catalog, and it's for very slow selling catalogs as a whole. Amazon themselves said they calculated only 7% of sellers will ever see this fee. And so I imagine the majority of people on this call are not within that 7%. So we won't get into it. Removal, disposal, liquidation. As Vanessa covered, inventory forecasting, proper inventory forecasting will mean that you don't have to have to resort to that. But then the other factor, reducing your return rate, will also help, because when you get items returned to you, removal orders that send inventory back to you, the return rate, lowering the return rate means you're lowering that removal rate. Then you have FBA capacity bids. Reduce your excess inventory so that you're not hitting that capacity. And then considering your best and worst scenarios. So before you go into placing a reservation bid, you want to consider, are you requesting and sending too much inventory in? What are you going to be paying in terms of that reservation bid? What would you pay in terms of your overage fees if, worst case scenario, you didn't sell that inventory? So you consider that, and then you consider your best case scenario if you ended up not being influenced by those fees and you were able to move that inventory properly. Consider those two things when you make that decision. Then you have peak and non-peak. Sell through your inventory, your non-holiday inventory before the fourth quarter. So paying attention to the fact that the fourth quarter, the fulfillment fees may get higher. They did last time. They had peak fulfillment fees. They haven't announced that yet, but they usually wait until we're closer to kind of surprise us and throw us that curveball. And then you have the storage fees, which are still at $2.40 per cubic foot. A lot of people got surprised by their bank account. They had their account was deducted, major, tens of thousands of dollars. We saw the posts. So be sure that you're selling through any of the inventory that you don't need to hold for Q4. So that it's not just sitting there and you're being charged all these fees. Low inventory level, track days of supply, like we talked about, raising your price, reducing your ads, all of those things we covered. And then, of course, FBA fulfillment fees. One strategy for this, you're always going to pay this. There's no getting around it, but you can resize into lower size tiers. So that product resizing, we actually have a free tool that is on sostock.com/tools. There's a product resizer that you can do on a single use. If you think that you've got a product that might be in that lower size tier, you can run the calculations and see what would it take to get into a lower size tier. How much weight would you have to reduce? How much would you have to reduce in terms of the actual size of the product, what that change is, and then what the financial impact is. If you've got a product that sells very high volume, you may be looking at thousands or tens of thousands of dollars in savings just by resizing that product. And it would influence your fulfillment fees as well as your storage fees. All right. So like Vanessa said, I know this is a bit overwhelming, all of this data, but here are some things that you can do right away to start to move forward with proactively addressing these concerns. First, I would find the new size tier, see if any of your products are going to be fit within those new size tiers, and understand what your new fulfillment fees will be, right? They'll be lower, but how much lower? If you get affected by those size tiers, then you could see a decent deduction in those fees. Calculate your inbound costs. So make the decision as to look at how the inbound fee is going to affect you, and what is the best choice for you. Is it to do the inbound, or is it to do the multi-location? And it has a lot to do with whether you palletize, if you're sending in less than truckload, full truckload. So run those calculations as best as you can. Know your inventory age. Like I mentioned, under fulfillment reports, you go to the payment section, and it's the aged inventory surcharge report. So find that out and then liquidate any inventory before April 1st. So if you've got products that are currently slow moving and you are planning to liquidate them anyway, and by liquidate, I don't mean liquidate, I mean to sell through. So I should have said sell through. So sell through that inventory before April 1st. Make sure that you do that before the April 1st deadline. Otherwise, as you're selling through that inventory, you're going to incur the extra fees. So, and then forecasting for fees, not just inventory forecasting, but understanding the fee structures and then forecasting to see what your fee liabilities are. What do you have currently in your catalog that is selling slowly that's going to cause you to incur the low inventory fees? What are the inventory items that are aged too much and are causing you fees? And even look at your sales velocity compared to your MOQ. If you've got a high MOQ and you have to order items in advance and have 5 months worth of inventory, you shouldn't send all that inventory to Amazon. You should develop a strategy where you hold some of that inventory. You might be able to have your supplier hold some of that inventory and keep that inventory, hopefully not charging you storage fees, but finding other alternatives to having your inventory in Amazon in excess. All right, we made it through, guys.
Just in time. Yay, perfect. So a quick thing for you guys, we work on this amazing profitability audit where we see 3 areas of your business where you potentially can have hidden profits or you're missing out opportunities to improve the profitability in your business. On the reimbursement sides and the money that Amazon owes you for losing damaging inventory in the warehouse. Also on the inventory level, like how you can do better forecasting and inventory management. That's with SoStock. And also on the PPC side, making sure that your campaigns are well structured and you're not bleeding money out in campaigns that are useless. We designed this profitability audit. If you scan the QR code, you will have access to it. But the thing and the surprise that we have for you, because we know that this is extremely overwhelming, we decided to do a part 2 webinar, a part 2 workshop. And in this workshop, this webinar was about theory. We talk about the theory, we talk about the why, we talk about what's the impact, how do you see it, and some examples, but very superficial. In the part 2 of the workshop, if you scan this QR code, you will register for the waiting list to get access to it. We're going to go in depth with the specific numbers. We'll give you some practice, hands-on practice with calculations, so you can go and input your numbers and see like, okay, this is what's going to happen to my business. Like, this is very important because even though we understand the theory, you probably leave this room and say like, oh my God, this year is going to be very tough. But we also want to give you the tools to do that, to help make better decisions and to forecast things. Chelsea and I are designing an amazing, flow for you to use it and, potentially improve your profitability by offsetting those fees and, not paying it. So the other thing, and I don't know, I still see that we have 190 people on the webinar. Chelsea, there are a lot of questions. If you don't mind, guys, we put some time apart so we can answer some questions. And I think if you don't mind, you want to stay with us here for a little bit, we will answer those, the most important ones. And I think we should focus on low inventory, Chelsea. The chat and the Q&A was like blowing up with the amount of low inventory. Let me share my screen so I can show you something. Okay, so with the low inventory fee, let's work on the numbers because Chelsea had it there and I think there was a lot of confusion for people. How can I calculate my benchmark? And I think Pedro was the one that asked, what's a good benchmark? Well, this is not about, your general category or other people. It's about your specific product. So how do you calculate the 90 days and the 30 days? This is as simple as getting the report on your business report. You could see on a AC level or even on a parent level, since we're working with parents, on a parent level, you can see how many units were sold in the 30 days. So in 30 days, in this, if you see it here, in the 30 days, I sold 300 units, right? So that means, or if I divide that equally in all of the days in the 30 days, it means that I sold 10 units a day, right? So I need to have 10 units in my inventory to cover the sales for one day. But on the 90 days, when I go to my report and I get the 90 days PUM, the previous 90 days, and remember this is measured, the low inventory is measured weekly base. So every Sunday they cut it. So every Sunday they measure your things. So when you go and try to see what's your 28-day supply, you need to cut it on the previous Sunday so you can see when they're gonna cut that number. So in the 90 days, I sold 990 units. That averaged 11 units a day. So in the 90 days, I need 11 units to cover my sales, okay? So what does that mean? That means that Amazon on that Sunday, let's say this Sunday, when this starts, this doesn't start this Sunday, but when it starts, they're gonna see back and they will see, okay, Chelsea needs to have 280 units in the warehouse, like on hand, no inbound, no reserve, no inbound, on hand, like available, 280 to cover the supply of the 30 days, because I, multiply 28 days times 10. So that she needs 280. And then when I see in the 90, right, she needs 308 units to cover the 28 days of 90 supply. So that's what that's what Amazon is asking Chelsea to have in inventory right now. So what they're gonna go is with the lesser amount, right, Chelsea? With the 280?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So right now, Chelsea's sitting in 250. So she's missing 30 units. Okay, so when you go to the presentation, you will see here in the slideshow, you see that when she has less than 28 days of supply, they're gonna charge 30, well, let's say that is the small and standard. For those units that because those units are missing, she's gonna get charged 32 cents per unit that she sells on that week until the remeasure goes next Sunday. Right? So think about it. Every Sunday, you need to know what is the lesser amount. In this case, 280. I need to have at least 280, right? And if I don't have that in the inventory, then I'll get charged. But if I have more than 280, then I won't get charged. And the crazy thing about the low inventory is that it gets more expensive with less supply. So for the between 21 days and 28 days, you get charged 32 cents, but then it goes to 63 and it goes to 89. So for the people that were
you have three different thresholds. So you could take it one further with that calculation that you have and know your 21-day threshold and your 14-day threshold.
Exactly. And what's crazy here, because I saw that question on the chat, was what happens if I know that I don't have more inventory for this product, if I'm discontinuing this product? It used to be that you could turn that to that it's not replenishable, then you didn't impact your API. The low inventory fee doesn't have to do with that. you're still gonna pay for this fee when you start running out of inventory. So it's like dripping. Every time you get lower and lower inventory, each time you sell the unit, this gets added to your fulfillment fee. Okay, so selling the last unit, the very, very last unit, will be more expensive than the units that you had to cover just 20 days of supply. Okay, so that's it. Why, like, crazy change. And I promise you that for the workshop, we're gonna give you the math, hopefully, behind it, so you can work on it and see the impact of that in one ASIN. And we were gonna work with that one example. At the end of the day, because this is still not in place, and we don't see how that impacts our bottom line and our profitability, we don't really know exactly how that's going to look like. They gave us the math in the policy, and it's still really confusing. So I think there is an opening for us to find the ways to offset it, but that's how you very simply calculate it in a spreadsheet. Okay, you need to know what was the average of sales on your 30 and 90, multiply that by 28, and then get the lesser amount. And you compare the lesser amount to what you have every Sunday on hand in your inventory. Oh, Brian was asking Chelsea, what is the magic inventory software that we should be using to maximize?
One of the things that we focus on at SoStocked is profitability. That is actually why I originally created the software, was because I was seeing my profitability impacted by mistakes with inventory. The inventory mistakes can be the most expensive mistakes that you make in your business. So always keeping in mind the fees, I think, is important. SoStocked, when the aged inventory fees got to be pretty crazy, we launched an overstock fees dashboard, and we're about to launch a low inventory level fees dashboard as well. So one of the things I'm going to be championing a lot is not just inventory forecasting, but fee prevention forecasting. So if you're interested in testing out SoStocked, you can reach out to us. And we, like Vanessa said, we have a free profit audit. So you can sign up for the free profit audit, get your inventory profitability audit, and we can talk through the state of your account, as well as things that you can do to improve your liability or your risk.
Yeah. The other question Alex is asking, when do they stop charging you the low inventory fees? When you run out of inventory. The last unit you sell is the last unit they will charge you for low inventory.
Or if you get above the threshold. If you've got inventory that comes in and then you bump yourself above the threshold.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, but it's the cycle, right? Like, you're supposed to go above the threshold. And also, when you run out of inventory, your 30-day supply, your 30-day average will be lower. So then if you send inventory, that will help you to offset that number, so you won't get charged that week. Yeah. One other question I saw, somebody was asking, small parcels just need to go to one FC location. Do we foresee any inbound placement fees for the smaller shipments? For sure. Especially smaller shipments, we'll see the premium service of the inbound placement fee. Because the reason behind the inbound placement, and I think Chelsea touched on that, is that Amazon needs to know how to distribute that inventory across the network, so the inventory is closer to the customer. Okay, so for the people that sell small parcels, you will see that premium service, sometimes discounted. Sometimes you will see the discount because you're already sending multiple shipments. But if you go to a single location, you for sure will see the premium service. And also, what's crazy is that I mentioned to you that you will see the chart 40 days after they receive it. And the reason of that is because sometimes they receive it in a distribution center and they split that across the network, and different locations have different premium services fee. So a location in North Carolina could cost you 21 cents per unit, but a location in California, it could cost you 40 cents per unit. So, and you don't have control after that is in the distribution chain. So sending multiple smart parcels don't necessarily get you out of paying the inbound placement fee. But again, this is the most mysterious one and the one that has the least amount of information in the policy. So once that's in place, we'll release more content about it and how that plays out. Perfect. So there are a few other questions. I think we're pretty much covered the low inventory fee. If you guys still have questions, make sure to come back for our workshop. That will definitely have more information for you.
One of the questions I thought worth answering was, how do you know if Amazon thinks you're good at inventory? And that would be the Inventory Performance Index. So in your inventory dashboard, there is an Inventory Performance Index, and that's Amazon's score as to how good or bad you are at inventory. And it has several different factors, including excess inventory, sell-through, out of stock or in stock level, and stranded inventory. So those will have their own scores, and then there'll be a total combined score. And so you can go there and see which parts of your forecast or which parts of your inventory you could improve.
Yeah. And again, if you download the white paper, you will see that a lot of these fees, well, what we talk about today and the numbers we gave you are for the US, okay, the FBA US or North America in general. All of the changes that we talk about impact Europe. So, the low inventory, the inbound placement as well.
Well, low inventory only impacts pan-EU. So UK should actually be fine. If you're using pan-EU though. Yeah, that was interesting. But if you think about it, because the UK is so small, they don't really incur those extra fees, fulfillment fees. But when you ship all across Europe, the distribution needs to be wider spread. Yeah.
Another question, Chelsea, and I don't remember this. I know it was a thing in the past, but I don't know if that's something in 2024, that Amazon adds 0.25 pounds to your weight to determine your tier for fulfillment. Is that still good?
They'll tier you up. So if you are, let's say you are at 1.01 pounds, you'll be in the 1 pound category. But they don't move you up into another tier. That they take the exact weight, and sometimes when they might measure you a little bit higher. So that's something to be careful with. But they don't add additional pounds. They just put you into that specific size tier. The other thing to factor, though, is dimensional weight. So we've done trainings on dimensional weight, probably Google dimensional weight, Amazon, but dimensional weight is a factor. There's specific formula. And so you might be in a higher fee tier because of dimensional weight, which basically is Amazon calculates the size of your product, and they will tier you based on the size of your product. There's a calculation that says, even though your product is 16 pounds, we're going to charge you like it's 20 pounds because it's so big that we can't fit very many on the truck. So they want to compensate for your product being really big, even though it's light. So pillows were one of the products that got hit really heavily when they introduced dimensional weight.
Yeah. The other question Stephanie was asking, do you recommend disposing inventory versus removing it and returning to the seller's warehouse for unsellable inventory? I think that really depends on their capacity to manage like unsellable inventory. I know there are some organizations in the US where if you get like unsellable inventory on Amazon, you can still donate it, and that donation will get you like a tax write-off or something like that. Disposing it, I think disposing is kind of tricky because at the end of the day, Amazon doesn't really tell you if they're really destroying the inventory. They might be liquidating it, and you could see that in, distribution and liquidation centers when they say that they dispose it. It's kind of tricky, and I wouldn't recommend. I don't like the disposing. Either you remove it or liquidate it, and when you liquidate it, you already know that that's going to go into another sales channel that you're not controlling at all.
The only case I think that would be a little bit different is if you're a wholesale seller and you are trying to protect your brand, might consider doing disposal. If you don't have anything, you can't do anything with it. A lot of people don't like to do disposal because their brand then would get out there and, they don't know where it would pop up. But if you have, product as a wholesaler, it might make sense if you don't want to incur the cost of dealing with what to do with it after you've removed it. But really, in that case, I would probably choose liquidation instead, just because it's less costly. You can recoup some of that.
How do you calculate inbound cost by product? They will tell you, Stephanie, in the new workflow, when they add this new inbound placement fee in the workflow, they will give you the price for a premium price and the potential the potential shipment that will get created when you do discounted, meaning that it gets routed to multiple different warehouses. So in the shipment creation flow, you will see those numbers. But the reality is that you are only going to get charged that at 45 days after that's received in the last warehouse. And as I mentioned, they could distribute to one distribution center, and then you will get charged in the last FC. So sometimes knowing Amazon, I don't think that's going to be extremely accurate. It will have a very close estimation, but that could range. Sometimes it could be cheaper, sometimes it could be a little bit higher. And they will tell you in the shipment workflow, they will tell you by product type or storage type, if it's small standard, large standard, flammable, apparel, and so on. They will tell you the fee. They're not going to break it down into a SKU level. So that's something that you should do on your end. And that's one thing that is super important, the unit economics.
Yeah. In terms of breaking it down, the calculations, what you want to do is if you've got your product and you know the cubic feet per unit, you can calculate it. It is a process, but you could create a spreadsheet that shows your cubic feet per unit and then the number of units you've had in that shipment. And then take the cost of the shipment and divide it against the cubic feet for each individual ASIN. So that would be how I would attempt that. It would be a spreadsheet that you would have to put together. It's actually something that I'm interested in exploring further with SoStock. Unit economics are very important, and that would help to get you there. I think that was part of the question.
But for the inbound placement, it's charged per unit, not per cubic foot.
Oh, I thought she was meaning like per shipment.
No, I think it's per unit.
No, I mean, I thought she was talking about, on a shipment basis, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think we're good, guys. Make sure to register for part 2. The team created a WhatsApp group. That's going to be very interesting. We now have a WhatsApp group. So if you have follow-up questions from now on until the workshop, feel free to send them there.
We can also look at the questions in preparation and see if there are questions that we could then cover on that next call that we didn't get to.
Yeah, definitely. But if I don't think, I think Chelsea, most of the questions are the same, repetitive, like low inventory and so on.
Mhm.
So I think we will leave it until this time. Thank you so much for joining us. We know that this is not the most sexy, exciting, happy topic. We appreciate your time, and hopefully you really learned something from here. And we promise that for the workshop, you really gonna see that hands-on preparation, so you can, build your toolkit and be better at. Because I believe that Amazon still is the biggest opportunity for our brands and for us to keep making money. We just need to learn how to play the game, and we're here for you to show you the new rules and show you how you can play better. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. And I just threw up the QR code. Some of you guys were asking for the QR code before we jump off. So be sure to grab that link before we log off. And thanks so much for coming, you guys. Reach out if you have other questions in the WhatsApp group.